those are kind of key. How many of you have heard about 4-sigmatic? Originates from Finland. How many of you have heard about Aura? Yeah, originates from Finland. So there is a lot of trends that are being used in the biohacking community that originate from this country. How many of you have heard about sauna? So here we go. Ice swimming and all of those are part of our traditions for long. So I would say Finland and Helsinki is the biohacking capital of the world. Biohacking is not about better, faster, stronger, although the Americans want to tell you that you can somehow, like, by sleeping only 4 hours per night and downing your fat-based coffee and taking your nootropics, you're somehow a better and well-functioning version of yourself. I think you are compromising something in a situation like that. To me, biohacking is actually about balance. It's about finding the balance in your life. It's about homeostasis. Just like in our bodies are full of different compensatory mechanisms that try to bring the body back into balance. So you have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Too much sympathetic nervous system domination is not good, for example. The same goes for blood values and kind of what is the perfect sweet spot for those. Just like cranking your heart rate up and stimulating yourself throughout the day and, taking all kinds of supplements is not the way, really, for becoming a well-functioning human being. I think it's all about also cycles in life, ebb and flow, rising tide, lower tide. In our days, in our weeks, in our seasons, in our years, in decades of our life, we go through different cycles. And it's natural that from your 20s to 30s, it's different than from 30s to 40s, 40s to 50s, 60s to 70s, 80s to 90s. I think living forever, being stuck to 21 is not the key of a healthy, well-being life. But to transcend what it means to be human is not to become immortal, but to pass on your genes in a way that this species can adapt to its environment and future challenges in the most optimal manner possible. So that my target is not to live forever, but to live a good life and leave a contribution. Biohacking is systems thinking, taking inputs, processing them, producing a biological response, and the learning is key. What you learn from the inputs, what you learn from your responses, and how you adapt, how you evolve as a human being is key. You are a system of systems. We are embedded in a systems of systems from the microcosm to the macrocosm to some of the level of a single cell DNA up to the level of the organism and being part of a larger ecosystem and ecology. That's what life is all about, and that's what biohacking is all about, is in the end understanding that most of the effective biohacks are actually about understanding your relationships to your environment. Actually, thinking of things like bacteria in our guts are basically outside of us. You're like a hollow tube. The bacteria living in your skin and in your digestive system, they are working in collaboration with us in unison. And actually the microorganisms and bacteria and so on in our bodies outnumber our individual cells. So the amount of DNA that is foreign, alien, right now in your body, working in collaboration with you to produce what you are and what you think, is that relationship, how you optimize your nutrition, how you optimize your connection to circadian rhythms and day light cycles and all of that ebb and flow is what is key to understanding the web of life and how to be well-functioning and embedded in this environment. We have disconnected ourselves from nature, and it's about time to reconnect us to nature. The human computer, starting from genetics up to the level of behavior, is a biological computer. What gets measured gets managed. What Peter Drucker said, one of the founding fathers of knowledge management, and understanding that what you pay attention to is what you are able to change as well. And now we have more and more sources for this bionic platform, starting from the level of DNA to understanding different organ systems, biomarkers and electric activity or biological activity in our bodies, up to the level of the population. Quantified self is self-knowledge through numbers, through which we gain better and deeper understanding. We can more readily reflect, and we can speed up the learning. We can speed up the feedback loop through which you evolve. We are becoming not just blood donors, but data donors in this process. And in the end, we are a way for the universe to see itself. You know, the iron molecules in our bloodstream, in our hearts, has been made in exploding supernovas. And we are happy to be part of this whole universe. The theme that we have here is to optimize the day 24/7. Time is of most limited resource, and the way how we think about every single day is key here. And it's not about, it's not really about finding like the perfect day or perfect schedule for the day, but different strategies to adapt, to sense what's going on, and be responsive to that environment. And as we learn things about nutrition and technology and all this, what happens is that we gain a little bit deeper knowledge. First, we are kind of almost unforgiving to ourselves. We are following a protocol, we are following the leaders and so on. But as you learn to understand your body and what it needs and in what situation you should do what. Because if you are doing everything that's in the Biohackers Handbook just for the sleep chapter, you would be preparing for sleep all day. So knowing what you do at a specific time, what is the 20% that will result in 80% of improvement, is kind of key and part of the biohacker ethos. So we have great speakers here today teaching us their best learned tactics and methods and tools, how we can, optimize ourselves and our days and our relationships to our environment. I really like what Ralph Waldo Emerson writes here. Write in your heart that every day is the best day in the year. He is rich who owns the day, and no one owns the day who allows it to be invaded with fret and anxiety. Finish every day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt crept in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. Begin it well and serenely, with too high a spirit to be cumbered with your old nonsense. This new day is too dear, with its hopes and its invitations, to waste a moment on the yesterdays. I think that's kind of the key point here. And we'll be diving deeper into all the different ways how you can, find more balance in your life and optimize your health and productivity. Feel free to take a photo and post it online. Use the hashtag Biohacker Summit. Now, it's about equilibrium. It's about finding your optimal, golden road, yin-yang, whatever it is, where opposing forces in all physical, chemical, social, technical, and biological systems are in balance. It's not about better, faster, stronger, more supplements, more hours into the day. That's not what biohacking is all about. It's about understanding that recovery is part of your training. So start with a single day. Optimize a single day. If you do this every day for 7 years, you're a completely new person, technically and practically, because almost 100% of the atoms in your body has recycled. Almost 100% of your cells have recycled. Within a year, 90% of you is a different person. So to change yourself starts today. And let's make the best day ever here at Biohacker Summit. We have the updated program on the website at biohackersummit.com. There's a few changes. Actually, 2 of our speakers got physically injured, not by someone else, but themselves, and couldn't come. So we made a few changes there. We have headphones also. You don't have to stand here, sit here. Biohacker Summit is all about getting around. We are streaming this, we are recording this. You get all the presentations afterwards. Interact with each other. And, we have amazing exhibition area, amazing sauna area, amazing upgraded workplace area, and so on. And that's what Biohacker Summit is all about. Not everyone will have a seating, and that's for a reason, because we want to be active. We are biohackers. We are not killing ourselves by sitting in a chair all day long.
I'm here to optimize the timetable.
Yes. No,
so
it's a few slides only. What do you think about the food?
I haven't tasted any food yet, but I'm so hungry right now.
Absolutely.
I will be eating everything.
Yeah, we have
later.
these food tokens, and these are these wooden coins that you can buy from the info desk and the Biohacker Center stand, and those you can use to get some food here and drinks. and the thermogenic spa. You can rent a towel, bring your swimming suit. In Finland, people go naked in the sauna, but I mean, you're welcome to also use the swimming suit here. There's international guests. Just wrap a towel around yourself if you didn't take one with you. Enjoy the smoke sauna. Use the hashtags Biohacker Summit. Optimize the day. And welcome to Biohacker Summit. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Okay, so it's time for our first speaker. I welcome on stage the Oscar-nominated documentary director and curator, Max Lugavere, the father of the New York Times bestseller, Genius Foods. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, guys. How's it going? Man, you guys are looking beautiful. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Max Lugavere. I'm a filmmaker, I'm a podcaster, I'm an author, a journalist. I do many things, but my focus is really to communicate the ways in which diet and lifestyle can mediate brain health, both in the long term, but also brain function and mental health in the short term. I've got a number of works under my belt that I'm proud of that I'd like to just briefly tell you about. So I wrote a book called Genius Foods. Anybody read it? Genius Foods? We got some fans in the audience. Okay, that makes me really happy. It's now being published in a bunch of different languages around the world. There's the Spanish edition called Elementos Geniales. I do a lot of television in the States. I regularly appear on shows like the Dr. Oz Show, the Rachel Ray Show, The Doctors, to talk about nutrition, which is obviously a topic that I'm very passionate about. I host the Genius Life podcast, and one of the things that I'm actually most proud of is down here in the middle, on the bottom. It's actually a chapter in a textbook, peer-reviewed literature, aimed at clinicians on the management and care of people that are at risk for Alzheimer's disease, so that clinicians can better know how to help them either delay or altogether prevent the condition. So what I'm going to talk to you about today are the foods that can help bolster your cognitive function and health both today and decades into the future. I became interested in this topic when at a very young age my mother, who you see up on screen, developed the earliest symptoms of dementia. Now this was a traumatic thing for me to have to witness, as it would be for any of you out there. You know, today, if you make it to the age of 85, you have a 1 in 2, a 50% chance of being diagnosed with dementia. But my mom was not 85, she was 58, actually, and it was a horrific thing to have to come to grips with. But having had a history of journalism in my back pocket, it set me up in a way to become a sort of an independent investigator so that I could discover why this would have happened to a woman at such a young age and without any prior family history of the condition. So one of the things that I started to look into was, how the modern world has changed over time. And, we've been anatomically modern humans for about 200,000 years. But over the past 10,000 years, there has been a dramatic shift to our diets and our lifestyles. And an even more dramatic mutation occurred over the past 100 years, and we call this the Industrial Revolution. So today, if you look at our environment, it's become toxic in many ways. I'm going to talk a little bit about food, but there's just so many ways in which the modern environment has become asynchronous with the needs of the body. So at the Biohacker Summit, today and tomorrow, you're going to learn about many of the needs of the human animal. We're going to talk about time, we're going to talk about circadian rhythms, we're going to talk about a myriad of different aspects that the modern world has ceased to cater to the needs of our biology. One way is which is pictured up here. We're just inundated with plastic compounds, right? So whether it's eating food out of takeaway wrappers or drinking beverages out of plastic bottles, we're basically consuming the plastic that these containers are made of. I actually posted on my Instagram earlier today, I was going to have a cup of tea with breakfast, and I noticed that the tea bags that were being offered by my hotel were made of plastic, which research over the past year has found plastic tea bags release billions of nanoparticles into your water, which you ingest. So that's just a taste of how mutated the modern world has become. And one of the things that I think is most pervasive is the food supply. The fact that the food supply has become a lot different than that which we consumed during the time in which our brains evolved. So as I learned from Teemu a couple of years ago, there are now 50,000 edible plant species on Earth, and yet the vast majority of calories that we consume come from just 3 crops: wheat, corn, and rice. Most of the time, these crops are pulverized and used to create what are called ultra-processed foods, which line our supermarket aisles. A good takeaway tip if you guys are shopping in your local supermarkets, which is where I believe true wellness occurs, you always kind of know where the packaged processed foods lie. They tend to be in the aisles. Supermarkets all tend to be designed the same, with the fresh, healthy, perishable foods on the perimeter, and yet all the packaged foods hang out in the aisles. And these types of foods now make up the overwhelming majority of calories that we consume every single day. So here we have a photo. This is a British family in the UK, and this is their average weekly food shopping haul. Does this look familiar? Do you see any fresh food in the picture? I see a couple bananas maybe, but other than that, these are all non-perishable packaged foods. And I'm going to get into detail as to why these types of foods are so dangerous for our brain health. Here we have an American family, same scenario, even fewer fresh foods. When we base our diets around these kinds of foods, they drive a process in the body called inflammation. Who hasn't heard of inflammation? Okay, so we're a pretty savvy audience. Most of us have heard of this concept. Inflammation is not a bad thing. It's a vital aspect of a healthy immune system. But it was meant by evolution to spot clean cuts, wounds, scrapes, bruises, to promote healing, essentially. Unfortunately, today, our immune systems are not responding to those sorts of things, which they would have over the course of our history as a species, but instead our immune systems are in overdrive, responding more to the kinds of foods that we're eating, these ultra-processed foods, right? Along with our overly sedentary lifestyles, chronic stress, and sleep, which I could fill a whole other talk with. Now, where this becomes relevant to the brain is that inflammation is literally like a fire. The word flame in inflammation is not a coincidence. It's meant to be there. And this flame is, again, as I mentioned, meant to occur on an acute and localized setting. When inflammation is chronic and low grade, which it is today for so many of us, it's like a forest fire happening in the body. And the brain sits directly downwind of that fire. I'll say it again. The flame in inflammation, the brain sits directly downwind of that fire. It's influenced in many ways in terms of its health, and in terms of the way that subjectively it makes you feel. A number of conditions now, mental health conditions, which are soaring in incidence around the world, are being tied to inflammation. We actually, there is a significant percentage of clinically depressed people who do not respond well to traditional treatments, and yet they do respond positively to drugs that are more typically used to treat pain, anti-inflammatory, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So that just goes to tell you that the etiology for some of our most inconvenient mental health conditions may be inflammatory in origin. The other problem is that inflammation creates collateral damage. It's like a shootout in a public park, right? Cops versus robbers. But unfortunately, public property is going to get destroyed. Well, the same thing happens with inflammation in our bodies and brains. And this is actually one of the cornerstones of aging, that balance being tipped in an undue way in favor of rampant inflammation. Our bodies have an incredible capacity to repair from inflammation, right? I mean, we are these incredibly elegant machines, which you're going to learn about over the course of the next 2 days, right? But the problem is, it's not so much a problem, but for our bodies to effectively cope with inflammation, we have to give them the right ingredients, right? We have to give them the right tools to be able to do that. But unfortunately today, 90% of Americans, okay, are deficient in at least one vitamin or mineral. And this is the paper that I found that highlighted this statistic. But as I showed you in those photos, our dietary pattern is spreading. It's our #1 export at this point. It's spreading around the globe. So I wouldn't be surprised if many nations in the first world are suffering, their citizens are suffering from similar nutrient deficiencies. And what that does is it handicaps our bodies in profound ways. So for example, magnesium is one mineral. It's actually referred to as a macro mineral because we need a relatively large amount of it every single day for good health. It's a cofactor required for hundreds of enzymatic processes in the body, and nearly every single one of the DNA repair enzymes in your body require magnesium. So DNA damage is one consequence of inflammation. It's at the root of aging, it's at the root of tumorigenesis or cancer. So magnesium is just one of these many essential nutrients that we know that we're not getting enough of today. Is this making sense so far? Awesome. The other thing that our diets do, because they're built upon these packaged processed foods, which are nutrient deficient because of the mere nature of their processing, is that they make it very easy to overeat and thus gain weight. So today we're seeing epidemic rates of type 2 diabetes. In the US, it's something like 50% of adults are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. 90% of pre-diabetic people actually don't know that they're pre-diabetic, which is very scary. The vast majority of us in this room may have blood sugar regulation issues and not even know it, according to statistics. And 2/3 of adults are either overweight or obese. So what this does is it further fans the flame